in the not-too-distant future, following the rapid succession of World Wars III and IV, plus the hidden horrors of secret World War II. There's not much left. All that remains is a place where folks get together to read and discuss comic books. Sometimes they laugh, sometimes they argue, but they always record and upload their transmissions. You've found one of those transmissions today. Welcome to the last comic shop.
Greetings from the future!
Is it the future still, or is it 1988?
We've jumped a little bit further or backwards in the time stream, but at the end of the day, it's all about drinking a lot of New Coke, eating a lot of Cool Ranch Doritos, and playing some Intellivision. Yeah, that's right. I didn't have Atari 2600. I had an Intellivision. And boy, oh boy, was there a great He-Man game. I'm the host with the most, Andy Larson. Welcome back to this week's show. We're all talking about the 80s on this particular program, and I'm joined by two other 80s babies, my regular co-hosts, Chad Smith and J.A. Scott. Guys, what do you miss about that fantastic decade?
Rewinding tapes when you're done watching a movie. In the little red car rewinder.
Yeah, Blockbuster would really be pissed at you if you didn't return it rewound. They would just be, I don't know, you'd be booted out of there. Chad, what do you miss about the 80s?
I'm going to go a different. I miss mutual assured destruction. Kids these days, they think they've got it so tough with their pandemics and their bullying and all that stuff. No, in the 80s, we went to bed every night worried that Russia was going to blow us up and we were going to blow them up and everybody's going to be blown up. And so instead, we just sat around and watched Night Court reruns and it was awesome. That's how we had to soothe ourselves with Night Court. Harold T. Stone.
That's right. Bull and lots of Mel Torme. It was great.
Oh, yeah.
But we always had Patrick Swayze to save us if the Russians invaded.
That's right.
There you go.
He was both next of kin and he carried a watermelon. It was wonderful. And speaking of wonderful things from the 80s, we've got a wonderful guest on today's program, the wonderfully talented comic book creator, Lynn Smith. Yay! And we've brought her on to the last comic shop to talk comics with us. Lynn, what do you miss about the 80s?
I'm wearing them now, the stirrup pant.
Oh, jeez.
I'm not really wearing them now. That would just, but yeah, I mean, come on. You don't have to worry about your pants riding up for some reason.
They were appropriately stirrup.
Good point. Good point. And we're hoping that you'll make some other good points on today's program. But for those folks that aren't really familiar with your fantastic work, I know that I was first introduced to you a couple years back doing a show in Pittsburgh. And my co-host, Chad Smith, and I were honored to be on a comic book panel with you. We were talking about a bunch of comic book characters that made social justice or social implications or something. Regardless, it was a great opportunity just to sit down and hear your thoughts on comic books, and that's why I wanted to bring you on today's program. But real quickly, I wanted to educate everybody on the show. How did you get your start in comic books? Like, why did you decide comic books? That's what I want to do.
I just wandered in, looked around like, okay. No, it was just kind of by accident, to be honest. I mean, I went to school for animation. I wanted to be an animator. That was my goal. I really wanted to be a character designer or a storyboard artist. Right when you graduate, you have so many offers. But no, I wanted to build up a portfolio of different artwork. And, I followed a lot of webcomics. And I thought, okay, webcomics, storyboarding, it's very similar. So, yeah, I just started making Plume. And then, it grew in popularity. And here I am. I absolutely love it. I love it to death.
And you're the type of creator and artist where your work, you're not just one niche. You've run the gamut. Like Plume had like Western influences. You did Hope, which was a great 5-issue miniseries where there was a superhero mom who goes through some stuff. to put it lightly. And then also, for goodness sake, we were checking that out the other day. What is that, romance, or how would you classify?
I called it a buddy adventure story.
Okay.
Romance is kind of like that carrot that you just dangle. But yeah, it's definitely a adventure comedy story with some fantasy in there because, he's cursed. Apparently I have a theme going through my comics, but yeah, he's cursed and they're trying to cure him of the curse by doing some good deeds. So
absolutely,
some fantasy in there.
I've really enjoyed all of your work, including your most recent one with For Goodness Sake. And ultimately, one of the things we like to do on the Last Comic Shop is bring folks into the comic book tent. It's a really easy read for any folks that are out there. It plays with some of those, I'm not going to say rom-com kind of tropes, but it really does have some neat little kind of Sam and Diane kind of thing from Cheers, where it's like, you got to keep it out there. You can't get these folks together right from the word go. You kind of have to keep teasing the audience and just the relationship that Rain and David start kind of working throughout the book. It's just marvelous, to be honest.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
I was going to comment. You mentioned the stirrup pants earlier. There's definitely a lot of mom jeans, and For Goodness Sake.
Yes, I will admit. There's a couple pairs in my own closet, sir. So
I don't understand how that's a style that's coming back.
It's purely the butt crack issue. When you sit down, your butt is firmly in your pants. So
there you go. You don't run into problems that way. No, believe me. I came of age in the 90s where we had the giant pants where, like, if the wind blew too hard, you might be parachuted away because your pants are so big.
You had all those weird buckles hanging off of your pants, too.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Jinko. Is it Jinko pants?
Janko jeans,
Janko.
yes. No vowels except the O at the end. Janko, yeah.
I'm interested in the process. So something like, For Goodness Sake, we read through volume 1. How long does that take you to put together? And what is the process? Do you start with the writing? Do you start with the art? Do you kind of meet that in the middle? And then, from sort of sketching out your ideas to finished product, what sort of turnaround time do you put yourself through?
For that first volume, I know I had the first issue done within a month. Maybe a month and a half, but that was when, we were actually still, in the real world. There was no pandemic. So I was going to shows and all that. So the beauty of this pandemic is I got to be able to work on this comic, like, go. So I was able to complete it pretty quickly. But yeah, I mean, me being the artist and the writer, the steps are kind of fluid through the whole thing. I'm able to change on the fly once I'm thumbnailing, or even, this last issue, I got through flatting it and then I'm like, this doesn't sound right, and went back and redrew some pages. So yeah, it's a very fluid process for me. I think
you can do what you want.
I do what I want.
I was going to ask whether or not, do you prefer being both the writer and the artist? I know you've worked on kind of both kinds of projects in your career. I was just wondering, like, the difference between that. It seems like you're both the writer and the artist. You have a lot more creative control, obviously, but, like, then again, you're also doing all of the lifting. Does it become taxing? Do you prefer working collaboratively?
I love to play with others. However, it is so much fun just to work on your own property. Yes, you don't have anyone to bounce ideas off of, So yeah, you kind of second guess yourself every turn when you're creating a project. However, I love it. I love the challenge. I love creating a world and bringing it to life, and it's purely my own vision. So, but that being said, I mean, I've done some really great collaborations in the past, and bringing someone else's passion project to life is an amazing thing. But I got to choose my own. I really do. At the end of the day.
No, that's awesome. It's like you said, at the end of the day, you have to answer to yourself. And when you're creating everything, like, at the end of the day, you can have something that you're proud of. You don't have to worry about having to have made those sacrifices or the, what do you call that when you let somebody else have their way? I'm real bad at it.
Is it called cooperation? I
don't think there's a word for it. So anyway, you don't have to worry about that stuff.
Yeah. You know what they say, when there's tension in creation, like with George Lucas, like, come on now. When George Lucas had other folks telling him these ideas are awful, you got a better product. That's just what I'm thinking. But I can understand. We're going to get to a commercial break right here. And we're going to be right back with our Read Pile book for this week. It is Kaylin Smith's choice, and she picked Paper Girls by Brian K. Vaughan and Cliff Chang. So we will be right back after these messages with that collaboration. So stay tuned.
My name is Nicholas Haskins, and I'd like a moment of your time to tell you about the 5th annual live stream for the cure. To do that, I brought along two people whom I couldn't do this event without, Gerald Morris and Dan Brennick.
Over the past 4 years, the live stream for the cure has raised over $30,000 for the Cancer Research Institute.
That contribution is helping to fund research into cancer immunotherapy, training the body's immune system to fight all forms of cancer.
This year, we're aiming for our biggest goal yet as we try to raise $15,000 in 50 hours on the air.
Tune in May 19th through the 23rd as we're joined live by podcasters and content creators from around the world.
With your help, we can continue the fight for a future immune to cancer.
Together, we can make a difference.
All right, we're back with more of The Last Comic Shop. And on today's program, we're going to be reviewing a wonderful book that was recommended by our special guest, Kaylin Smith. This book is, gosh, it's really good. For those folks that like things like Stranger Things and any sort of nostalgic throwback to the 80s, boy howdy. You got to pick up Paper Girls by Brian K. Vaughan, BKV, as we like to say, and Cliff Chang. Yeah, I think we actually recommended a Cliff Chang book on a previous show, didn't we, Chad? You did...
Yeah, his Wonder Woman run, Brian Azzarello. It's one of the best books out of the New 52. But yeah, Cliff Chang is an awesome artist. And since we're already getting into it, you have Matt Wilson on colors, who's been rocking it on Daredevil for the entire Mark Waid, Chris Somney run. And you have Jared Fletcher on lettering.
He ran from 2015 to 2019, and this book is highly, highly acclaimed. It has won lots and lots of Eisners. In 2016, it won Best New Series. It also won Best Penciler for Cliff Chang. In 2017, The Colorist got its nod when Matt Wilson took home the Eisner for Best Colorist, and also Brian K. Vaughan won for Best Writer. And then Matt Wilson also won 2019 for Best Colorist. So yeah, lots of Eisners under this thing's belt. So we've got our guest, Kaylin Smith. She's going to give us our 10-cent synopsis for the first volume.
No pressure.
Yeah, no pressure at all. First volume of Paper Girls. So
explain this.
Okay, well, it starts out with a very unassuming group of ladies, girls, 12-year-olds, that deliver papers, and they discover a ship of some sort in a basement, and then basically the turd hits the fan, where you see it's like futuristic, but not, but it just goes crazy. Like, you think it's just a nice, calm, nostalgic story, and then the big fat turd hits the fan. So it's great. Is that
No, that's real good.
Yeah, that's fine. That is as 10 cents as you're gonna get. And real quickly to add, I mean, yeah, those turds, they got pterodactyl wings, and there's some guy that's got a beard, and I don't know, he's wearing an Apple t-shirt, and he's like, "Oh, you young hooligans, get off my lawn!"
Yeah, so, don't forget about the melty-faced ninja guys.
It actually reminds me of my favorite line in that, when he was like, they were explaining what these guys look like, and they were like, "Yeah, remember that Rocky Dennis guy from the what?"
The Elephant Man. Or no, what was that movie?
Oh, what is that movie with Eric Stoltz? Isn't he in that?
Cher.
Maybe.
Mask.
There you go. See, that's J.A. coming in as our movie buff. But no, it is full of 80s references. Again, if you like Stranger Things, you're going to love this book, because it's got that same feel to it, in which it's taking you back. The one girl, Erin, has like dreams about the girl that died on the Challenger explosion.
Krista McCullough.
And then later
With
on, she has
angel
another
wings.
dream, a fever dream about Ronald Reagan after she gets shot. But
That was so creepy with the blood coming out of his coat. Like, and he's like, yeah, every shot doesn't get you.
But go ahead and get initial thoughts, and we're going to go ahead and start off with my cousin J.A. because he's been a big fan of Brian K. Vaughan's work from Saga, which he might end up recommending by the end of the show. But J.A., what did you think of Paper Girls?
I liked it, and I wanted to read more. So that's always a good thing when you get to the end and you want to continue the story. I would say the only trepidation I have is I'm glad to know that it's finished, because that's the big problem I have with Saga. I've got 9 volumes in, and I'm still waiting for the next 9 to finish the damn story. But it's nice to know that this one has an ending, so at least I can get feel like there's a conclusion to everything. It does have that 1980s nostalgia trip going on. So if you grew up in the 80s, I think it's very much catering towards that population. So people who are in their 30s and 40s now, like to read comics, will really get into it. I love that the protagonists, while they're only 12-year-old girls, and you meet them, very quickly, and there's not a lot of build-up or exposition getting into the story. They each start to define themselves as you go through this first volume. They each have sort of a role to play, and you see, especially with sort of the leader, how she's very, she is very brash and what am I trying to say here?
She smokes. She's tough.
Yes.
She's got a lot to prove.
She's got some pepper in her.
That's it. Thank you. She sort of adheres to some very cliched, stereotypical role positions, but then you see that a lot of that is just a facade as well, and that's what I liked. So that he's taking these cliches and using them to explore something, as opposed to just having them there because it's lazy writing.
Was there one particular girl that you ended up gravitating towards, or like saying like, yeah, no, that's my favorite. That's my favorite Beatle right there. It's not George, it's Ringo.
The one with the hockey stick.
KG. She was my
Yeah.
favorite.
Yeah, she is cool. I like the one that plays video games, and
her light
she-
flashes before her eyes, and that's all.
and
she
it's all
sees.
Arkanoid.
I love that part, especially with the orientation. The book switches on its side. I love that.
It's very true. Kaylin, why don't you jump in here real quickly? Now, have you read a lot of other Brian K. Vaughan books, or is this like?
See, I gotta admit something. I didn't grow up with comics. See, I'm so new to the comic world, to be quite honest. Like, I always get nervous when people are like, "Oh, recommend your favorite comic book." I'm like, I don't have a favorite comic book. I'm an animator. Like, I can tell you animations that I just love up and down. But comic books, I didn't grow up in that world. But I did pick up this book when I was at a book signing. I think it was in Iowa or something. But I picked up the first volume, fell in love with it. Like, I just loved it. It was nostalgic. But I'm embarrassed to say I can't find the volume 2. I'm embarrassed to say I don't have 3, 4, 5, and 6. So I didn't even finish the story yet. But when I saw Paper Girls on the shelf, immediately it grabbed my eye. And just the colors alone, Matt Wilson is just absolutely phenomenal. And long, answer short is no, I've only read this one.
It's okay.
I was going to chime in here that I think that's interesting just because you talk about how you were interested in animation. And one of the things about the author, Brian K. Vaughan, is he is not just a fantastic comic book writer, but he's also really heavy into television. He was a writer and story editor on Lost for 3 years. He did Under the Dome. Like, he'll take breaks from comics and go, into Hollywood and make some bones and then come back to comics and keep pouring things in. But I wonder if that had anything to do with the appeal where, he might have a guiding hand in terms of making it a little bit more cinematic or a little bit more, appealing to what you're looking for.
Yeah, for sure. the way I map out my comics is storyboarding, and I can see that for sure throughout this book. It's very cinematic.
It does have a very almost televised feel. It's no wonder that Amazon is going to be picking up Paper Girls. They've already greenlit it for a live action series that they're going to be having. Hopefully we'll see it in the next year or two. But I think during the break you said that you had like a big stack of comics, like all these comics that other artists have given you as you've gone to shows and you've been introduced to folks. And like for some reason you picked up Paper Girls, and not only picked it up, but then read it and then said, hey, I'm going to be on the Last Comic Shop and this is the book I want to review. Why did this like grab your imagination and kind of run with it?
I think because I didn't grow up with comics, and I always thought, the big-breasted, sexy lady on the front cover was never written for me. And so seeing this book with, an ensemble of all, young girls, I was like, all right, let's see, how often they talk about boys in this. I was curious to see, a female-driven story and how it played out. And I'm delighted that it's really held up, and you don't even think about them as girls. Like they're tough and they're strong and they're doing their thing, and that's it. Like it's not a driving point that they're girls. I don't know. It's just
I don't even think they talk about boys, do they?
Yeah, they talk about the jerks that pick on them, but they happen to be boys. But
piggyback off of Kaylin's, I think the implication is here, there aren't a lot of these stories out there, with starring female leads that are just being regular kids. In the 80s, you had your Goonies and, Stand By Me and all these movies that were also, boy-centric, and everybody would go and see those movies and enjoy them, but there wasn't that alternative out there to be like, no, it's the girls' turn. Mm-hmm. And so it's really great to see, even though the creators or males, it seems like they capture the essence of 12-year-old girls, like what they have to go through. And
it was a little bit of a morbid curiosity too, to like look in the inside and say, okay, there's a bunch of men writing about teenage girls. Let's see how they do.
There you go.
But no, I was very pleased. Yeah.
Do you have a particular favorite moment from the book?
Absolutely. It's Tiffany's her life flashing before her eyes, and she's just playing the video game the whole time. That was my favorite part, hands down.
I love the one line in there where she's like, why didn't I stop at level 38?
Yeah,
whatever it is.
Just yeah.
And it's also wonderfully counterbalanced by actually what's going on in the real world, where you see, I think it's KJ, attacks the creature that, basically trying to asphyxiate her with like some sort of tentacle or something, just kind of rips it out of the creature in this very kind of violent scene, but she's not going to let her friend go down like that. And it's just neat because you really get an idea of camaraderie in this book, even though some of these girls barely know each other. That's the other thing about this book. If you really read it, at one point, I think Aaron says, yeah, they're not really my friends. I think one of them shot me. And it's just kind of like,
she was new to the group. There's initiations.
Yeah, right. It's like
hazing.
A very, yes. Right. But no, at the same time, these characters are thrown together on this one crazy night, and they have to almost form a kind of a sisterhood and kind of protect each other and look out for each other when they barely know each other for the most part. I just think that's neat. Chad?
The thing that I loved about this book was how 80s rough around the edges it was. And that's one thing I was joking earlier about the MAD, mutual assured destruction. But we live in a time, and we're trying to soften things, I guess is the way that I want to put things. We all want to make the world a kinder, more gentler place for people. And in efforts to do that, we sort of gloss over a lot of the terrible things that happen and the terrible things that people say. And I remember being a kid in the 80s, and we were so cruel to each other, and we would say these horrific things, and that was just Tuesday. And then you would go on, and this book, it has that rough around the edges. It doesn't shy away from those moments of kids being kids and being terrible to each other and kids bonding together. And I really love that. And then whenever you get into the plot with the time machines and, these guys from the future coming back, I feel like it's almost a little bit like retro-futuristic, where it has a foot both in the futuristic realm and in this retro 80s, like, buddy movie type thing. And I this whole story, it's just grounded enough. Like, you feel it when the kid falls off their bike and scrapes their knee, and like, you feel that, hey, look at that crazy guy with the Apple t-shirt. And like, what are all these Apple devices doing in here? Is this what my iPad is doing? Like, is this what this is going to cause? But it's so fun with this particular story, how they manage to straddle the line and really make the futuristic stuff seem weird and out there and futuristic, and make the 80s stuff seem, as a part of society that wasn't quite as developed yet.
There's so many weird oddball moments in the story. And yeah, like you said, like rough around the edges with the 80s references and the futuristic references, like the very floppy disks type.
And they bust out walkie-talkies.
Yeah. But it all, for some reason, all comes together, and it's just, it feels right. Like it all fits.
It's a temporal mess, but it all works.
It all works.
The one thing that I had is, my wife was the one that introduced me to Paper Girls, and she said, "Oh, you got to read this book. It's so good." And so I said, "Okay, I'm going to read this." And she said, it involves time travel, and you like Doctor Who, so you're going to be, Look, sometimes that can turn some folks off. The time travel stories can be just not very digestible at times, because you're trying to explain how the time travel works, and then that doesn't make any sense. But I think it's interesting how time travel does play a role. If you read later Paper Girls, the whole notion is whether or not time travel should be used to kind of fix errors of the past, like whether you should do that now that you have this technology, kind of like what we do with any other sort of technology, which is like, what is the limitations once you've opened Pandora's box? Like, what do you do with that? Like, what do you do with cloning, or what do you do with, playing around with DNA or whatever? And the same thing goes with time travel. If you have that access to that technology, are you going to use it responsibly, or are you not going to use it responsibly? Are you going to go back and shoot a dinosaur? What are you going to do with it? And it's the same thing in this book. That you meet the teenagers from the future, the Rocky Dennis kind of character and his buddy. I forget what are their names.
Do they need names? Just Melty Face 1, Melty Face 2.
Fair enough.
Heck is one of them.
Oh, there you go.
There you go. Heck. Yeah, it's true. And the other one's like Ronaldo or something. I don't know. Yeah. We'll just say that's his name.
Heck and Naldo.
See, I was close. But no, they I guess evidently they found the time machine in a junkyard. And they decide to use it to go back and take technology. I guess they live so far into the future. It's not really explained a lot in Volume 1, but you really don't need to know much more than that. And other than they're kind of messed up teenagers, just like the young girls in the story. I wanted to kind of ask Caitlin Smith whether or not that approach to time travel. I don't know if you've watched or read any other time travel stuff, but do you think like the way that time travel was handled in Paper Girls, like easily digestible, I guess?
My doctor is the 10th Doctor, just FYI. I love Doctor Who. I think it was, for sure. I have been writing on a novel for years, and it's time-traveling pirates, and you're right. Time travel is a tough cookie to crack, and I don't know if I'll ever finish that book.
I was going to say, you're throwing another genre in the mix, getting into the pirates. Jeez,
I know. Sci-fi and pirates. I loved it, and it kind of made me like, ooh, like when I'm reading it, I'm like, oh, that's awesome that they go back and... I don't want to give too much away, but yeah,
that's all right. There's spoilers.
But they return back to the ship and find Aaron in it. Like, I don't know. I just feel like it was handled very well. You always worry about like paradoxes and like, okay, if they opened the machine, then what would have happened? And I think it was handled well.
And I think, too, there's a confidence there that your audience is going to pick up on it. And you're not going to be dragged down explaining things and drawing diagrams and circular charts, Jonathan Hickman. But you just put them into it and be like, no, we've got pterodactyls and bugs that'll chew your wounds up and make you better. Deal with it.
Yeah. I did not know that Brian K. Vaughan had done work on Lost. And now that I know that, this makes so much sense, because Lost is like that, you're just thrown in and you're not explained anything. I'm glad this has an end. That's the problem I have with Lost, is it went for a while and then it just ended and you're like, okay, and what was the point of that besides wasting all my time?
Yeah, part of the fun is the theories you come up with.
Right.
Hot
It's
button
nice
issue.
though because and I think why the time travel is digestible in this is because it only happens once. Like, there's really only one time travel thing that happens in this. Like, the whole notion of, like, oh, they just disappeared. Wait, that's where we found the time machine to begin with. Oh, so it's very, very...
No, I'm calling baloney. You've got your time travel ninjas running through and stealing people's walkie-talkies. There's at least 3 or 4 instances of time travel here.
Yeah,
the twist ending, too.
The pterodactyl's fine,
Yeah.
whatever. But it's only used as a plot device once. Like, it's like, yeah, they jump in the ship and then they end up somewhere else. And you're like, okay, that makes sense to me.
And the last page of the volume where...
Right. What a hook. That's the thing about Brian K. Vaughan. He knows how to keep the audience guessing. When at the end of the book, they all get, like, I don't know, blasted into different time zones or whatever, and 3 of them end up together, and then I'm Aaron, and then somebody comes out of a car, but I'm Aaron, but I'm much older and kind of cool with my ripped jeans.
And her iPhone, her iPod plugged in.
Mm-hmm.
If this was Netflix or an Amazon Prime show, you'd be like 2 in the morning, oh, I gotta watch that next episode.
Yeah. Are you still watching? Yes, don't make me click the button, just show the episode. Before we leave, I have one more scene I want to talk about, and it's when all the girls get on their bikes and they're pedaling around looking like badasses. And like, who hasn't, when you're 12 years old, felt like a badass riding your bike down the street with your gang? Like, oh, I love that thing.
Heck yeah. Heck yeah.
All right. Well, we'll be right back with more of The Last Comic Shop right after these messages. We're going to get to our grades for Paper Girls. This should be fairly easy, I guess. I think. Plus some recommendations and more talk with Kaylin Smith. So stay tuned for that.
It was the 3-legged dog of comics.
It was bad.
These 2 gentlemen met in jail, and then when they got out, they started publishing.
It should have been mobsters instead of doing what they do in comics.
Management there was questionable at times.
Some of it has to do with people who go to jail.
We are sinners. We have corrupted the youth.
Stuff that should never have been sold to kids.
And then there was Charlton. I couldn't quite tell what they were doing.
Charlton was just a hodgepodge of weird titles.
What is this? Who am I dealing with?
John threw nickels around like they were manhole covers.
CATAP. They were cheap.
Hell yes, they're cheap.
They were a special kind of special is what they were.
Printing was horrible.
You could smell them beginning to decay even as they were rolling off the press.
At one point, they actually did have to move the comics operation into a bowling alley.
It's something out of a sitcom.
We want to publish comic books in the worst way, and they did.
It's been called the street-fighting cousin of Marvel and DC. Maybe you've heard of them. Probably not. But you do know the industry legends that called it home. This is Charlton Comics. Follow at charltonmovie.com.
Oh, it's going to suck.
All right, we're back with more of The Last Comic Shop, where it is now time for our ratings, where we have the audacity to say to Brian K. Vaughan, we are going to rate your book, sir, and you're going to like it. Because why? We're a rinky-dink little podcast, and that's what we do. That's what we do. We try to say to ourselves, we got to feel important somehow. We're going to give it a 1 out of 4 scale, and we're going to rate your particular work. And J.A. likes to give us a particular scale every week that's kind of unique. So, J.A., what is our rating scale for Paper Girls?
So, rating scale's very easy this week. Close to my heart, as I used to be a paper boy. So, papers delivered.
Breaking windows and riding on bars.
Having the little handlebars in that arcade game, that was the best paper boy.
I went through the book, and they deliver in the book officially 2 papers.
Well, that one guy wasn't paying his bill. He's not getting papes.
Yeah, those newsies don't come there.
You have to shorten papers.
What are you, Crunchy? Is that the name of one of the newsies? Oh God,
I can't remember. It's so long ago. I remember it's headlines don't sell papes, newsies sell papes. It's Christian Bale dancing.
All right. Well, we're going to start off with J.A. since he recommended these papers deliver, and he always delivers on this show. J.A., what are you going to rate it this week?
I'm going to rate it 3 out of 4 papers delivered. I really enjoyed the book. As I said, when I got to the end, I wanted to pick up volume 2 and continue the story. So anytime you get to the end of a comic and you want more, that already boosts it up a level. The art is fantastic. The colors are just so vibrant. I don't think we've gushed enough over the coloring, except to say that it won a bunch of Eisners, which paradoxically, some people will say, well, that must mean it sucks.
That is true. There's some of those folks that say that just because something wins an Eisner, it's no good. Anyways, so are you going to read more?
I'm going to, yeah. I want to find out what happens. And I know that I'm hoping I get a satisfactory conclusion after my 6-volume investment, since I'm 9 volumes into Saga and 9 more to go.
There you go. You never know when you're going to get lost it again, though. Be careful.
That's right. They might throw in some, I don't know, black smoke and then try to explain what it is. I was so disappointed. They were all dead. That's bullshit.
By the way, kids, spoilers for Lost from 15 years ago.
Yeah, just in case you never watched that. Any case, we've got Chad. He's going to give us his rating for Paper Girls. What are you rating it, buddy?
I'm going to go 4. Today you stepped on my toes by bringing up the Matthew Wilson colors and how we haven't gushed enough about them. He does such a great job of setting the tone of this book. No matter what the situation is, like between that and the Cliff Chang art, everything is so clear, but the feeling is there, whether he's going through the blues in the night. And then there's that one panel I brought up earlier where the girl's knees are bruised through her jeans, and all of a sudden he busts out an orange there, and you feel the pain. It's just such great emotional manipulation through the art, through the colors, and the storyline. With Brian K. Vaughan, you're going to get a great story. But really, the art duties on this book, they pull their weight and more. This is a good book for people that aren't super duper into comics. I could definitely see giving this to somebody in high school and be like, oh, you like Stranger Things? You want to try comics? Give this a go. Because it does capture that feeling, and it's immediately accessible. You get into there, you get all you need to know, and whatever else you need to figure out, you'll figure it out later. But it's great stuff.
Okay. Kaylin, what is your rating for Paper Girls? How many papers are you delivering, ma'am?
Oh, 4 papers. Throwing them out. 4. I want to say, too, the languages that were in there. There's the alien language, and then the weird dialect that the elders talk in. It's very smart, and when you're reading, you're slowing down. You're like, what the heck is going on? But I really appreciate that. They created their own language. I love it.
That's right. That's why I'm giving it 4 papers delivered as well for this week. A book is good when you read something like Saga and you say, boy, Brian K. Vaughan just hit it out of the park with Saga, things like Lion Cat and some of the dialogue, in the first trade of Saga, there's a woman after being through hell, giving birth and running from all these people trying to kill her, basically takes a shower, and she's like, I would have sex with that shower. He knows how to write dialogue, and he knows how to write dialogue that means something to folks, that really connects with, that you can say, yeah, I've been in that situation before, where that at the end of the day, that's all I wanted was just to take a shower, because I just was through hell and I just wanted to get clean. I just wanted to. So in Paper Girls, you get the same thing. I think that's where Caitlin Smith hit the nail on the head, where the dialogue, whether it's alien dialogue or the weird language, kind of broken English that all the elders speak in or whatever, or just the dialogue in between the actual Paper Girls themselves, I should have stopped at level 28. These are all things that they're touchstones. We know how these characters feel. I feel like sometimes in comic books that can be lost. Unless the right person's behind the wheel. I mean, I think that Brian Michael Bendis does it really well with dialogue. Brian K. Vaughan is the same way. I think it's something with Bryant. If your name's Brian, you're going to write good dialogue, I guess. And I feel like now that I've read both Saga and Paper Girls, and also with other things like Ex Machina, I think that Paper Girls is probably Brian K. Vaughan's most approachable work. Saga is still kind of out there, even though it deals with a lot of family drama and a lot of things that folks can probably relate to. It's still got a robot with a television for a head. It's still got this one scene where there's these giant heads on legs, and they go to sextillion or whatever. It's so creepy.
And to J.A.'s point, this is 30 issues. That's a very doable thing as opposed to Saga, where Saga's up over 75 before they went on hiatus.
Yeah. This is something where you can get in, you can get out, you can move on with your day. And I think that's why this particular program's been greenlit for an Amazon series, and Saga is still out there. Although, I don't know, sometimes I feel like Saga would be really hard to adapt anyways. But
sci-fi stuff to do well.
Yeah. It's like that on Uncanny Valley. Just start getting that stuff with those giant heads on legs. Anyways, speaking of other great books out there other than Saga, because I guess that might be one of our recommendations on this program, we also like to give you other books that you can pick up in your free time, as well as Paper Girls Volume 1, as we just talked about. As we often do on this program, we like to do a current book, a similar book, and a book out of left field, although I don't know if we're going to follow those rules on this show. We've also got Caitlin Smith. She's going to give us a cherry on the top, which is great. We love when guests do that. And so we're going to go ahead and start off with a similar book, and it is another one written by Brian K. Vaughan, which I've talked about quite a lot, and that comes from J.A. So, J.A., what are you going to be recommending this week?
Yes, I'm going to recommend Saga. the entire run up to this point, which is only half of the story. So you get half of the saga. And to Chad's point, it is a bit of a saga. It is a long story. It's basically, when it's done, it'll be the story of this girl, Hazel, from birth to who knows what. We haven't got that far yet. She's only a little kid right now. But it starts out with basically, sort of a Romeo-Juliet, people from different species coming together to make the Antichrist and or savior of society type figure, and what they get into. If you grew up liking big space opera type stories, this is for you. If you like Paper Girls and the dialogue, it's very similar in Saga, though a little bit more R-rated. I think Paper Girls is like PG-13 compared to Saga. Saga is definitely not past the comics code back in the day by any stretch of the imagination. It's not something for young children. This is not the book that you're going to give to your 10-year-old to get them into reading comics, but it's definitely something that you'd give to your college-age cousin, niece, or nephew that is kind of into comics and wants a different story. And, it's won Eisners and Hugos and Harveys. It's just, it's that type of book.
All right. And now it's time for our current book, and that comes from Chad, which I think is going to be other Brian K. Vaughan stuff.
Exactly. I'm going to... Oh, wait, I was current this week? Let's make JA's the current. Mine is just going to be Brian K. Vaughan's back catalog, because I've already recommended the Cliff Chang Wonder Woman stuff on another show. Cliff Chang is awesome. I talked about Matt Wilson. He's awesome. But BKV, if you're into politics, pick up Ex Machina. That's his book with the mayor with the superpowers. If you're into post-apocalyptic weirdness, check out Why the Last Man, a series he did from Vertigo and DC. You want more teens, coming of age, and crazy supervillain chicanery, check out Runaways. If you want weird sci-fi out there, detective noir stuff, you could pick up Private Eye. He did with Marcos Martin. But just seek out Brian K. Vaughan's name. You're going to find quality stuff as a result. So I'm cheating this week. If you want good recommendations, just look for Brian K. Vaughan. You'll find something.
That's right. That is the best recommendation we can give, is just anything with BKV on it. That's a quality book. But
unless
also,
it's lost.
Damn you, smoke monster. Anyways, for the out of left field pick this week, it's actually also similar. It's also current, because it was released not too long ago. But it is not a Brian K. Vaughan book, so I am not falling into that camp this week. This is actually comes from a Norwegian cartoonist named Jason, also known as John Art Satteroy. I'm sorry if I just butchered his name.
Just pick one and go!
Yeah, whatever. His name's Jason. And he did a great book, which is called I Killed Adolf Hitler. And the most amazing thing about Jason's work is he uses all anthropomorphic animals. So, Caitlin Smith, if you like animation, you should check out some of Jason's work. And this book won an Eisner back in 2008 for Best U.S. Edition of International Materials. That's hoity-toity. But this book, I Killed Adolf Hitler, is about time travel, similar to what you get with the Paper Girls. But similar to Paper Girls, the focus isn't on time travel. It's about a hitman who is having basically relationship issues and basically dumps his girlfriend. And then the girlfriend tries to kill him. And he says, okay, I'm going to take this job to kill Adolf Hitler, uses a time machine, goes back, and fails. Because Adolf Hitler knocks him out and steals the time machine, which is kind of an interesting twist. And the guy has to basically live from when he goes back in the 1930s until the present day. And it's actually really just a story about how people grow and they change. But sometimes the things that they didn't appreciate when they were at one age, later on actually mean quite a lot to them in terms of those relationships that we had. And it's really, really great. Fantagraphics puts it out. It's got a real Tintin kind of quality to it. Those folks that like Tintin and kind of the known for like the sparse backgrounds and nice clean lines, that's all Jason's work. He does some other great books like Athos in America and The Last Musketeer. But I Killed Adolf Hitler. That is a great book, not only because eventually he does kill Adolf Hitler, but you just learn some stuff about relationships, too. So in the case, we've got the cherry on the top, and that comes from Caitlin Smith. Caitlin, what are you recommending for today's program?
My cherry is actually pretty fitting for what you recommended. It's Mouse by Art Spiegelman. It is the horribly beautiful story about the Holocaust survivor. And I told you, earlier that I hadn't grown up with comics or with graphic novels. However, in middle school, I was introduced to this book, and it just blew me away. It's so heartbreaking and honest, and I love history. I love nonfiction. So this was right up my alley. So I always say, if you haven't read that, you need to read it.
Yeah. Sure. The analogy of all the folks, being mice and then the Nazis being cats. And
yeah,
you're right. I would probably put it on the Mount Rushmore of comics, up there with things like The Dark Knight Returns and Watchmen, probably even higher than both of those, just simply because of the social gravity of that particular book. Mm-hmm. Real quickly, Chad, what's the interesting fact about... I was going
to say, anytime somebody brings this up, this high-minded, wonderful story between a father and his son and acceptance and the Holocaust and all these horrific things, I like to bring it down a little bit and remind people that Art Spiegelman, responsible for Mouse, also responsible for Garbage Pail Kids. So, Garbage Pail Kids basically funded Mouse back in the day.
Yeah.
He made all his money on Garbage Pail Kids.
He did?
The high mighty thing makes no money, right? Isn't that a perfect distillation of capitalism?
That's right. You gotta make Garbage Pail Kids in order to fund your hoity-toity projects. You know this to be true. But no, real quickly, Kaylin, if you really like Mouse, there's another great book that you should check out by Emil Ferris. It's My Favorite Thing is Monsters, which is highly influenced by Mouse. It deals with very similar things, and it's done in a very, very interesting style in which a young girl is drawing in like a notebook, and she loves monster movies, and everything is done on notebook paper, and it is gorgeous. It's very, very dark, though. I made Chad read it, and he was like, no, I had to put that down several times because that was intense. Not in TPs, intense. It was fine.
There you go, yeah. I can second that recommendation, but I don't want to read it again just because it freaked me out so much.
I'm going to make people read it on this show for sure. Come Halloween time, My Favorite Thing of Monsters is going to be on this program. Maybe we'll have Caitlin Smith back for that.
The art is so beautiful, and it looks like it's done with a ballpoint pen. a lot of times, but she's like recreating like paintings in museums with ballpoint pens. It's crazy.
Well, thank you so much for that cherry on the top. And of course, that's all the time we had for the last Comic Shock this week. But we're going to allow Kaylin Smith to just gush about what a tremendous artist she is. So real quickly, Kaylin, I know you've got a fantastic Kickstarter out there right now. It's just wrapping up in just the next couple of days, but it's been tremendous. Like the folks that have just come out of the woodwork to support is it the final volume of For Goodness Sake?
It is, yes. Yeah. So I think that's what's encouraging people to come out is like, okay, the book is complete. So yeah, we have a finale there. But yeah, it's going strong, and I'm eternally grateful. Holy crap. I'm speechless about it. It's been going great.
Absolutely. So yeah, if you haven't checked it out yet, we're going to have links to her Kickstarter in the show notes here. It's only through April 9th, so only a few days. It's the home stretch for this particular thing. Get out there, support Kaylin Smith.
And don't forget about For Goodness Sake Volumes 1 and 2. Kaylin, where can people get a hold of some of the great work you're doing in addition to that, and Plume and everything else?
So KaylinSmith.net is my website. You can actually grab the first and second volume of For Goodness Sake on there. You can also get the first two volumes on the Kickstarter as well. And all my social media is linked through that site as well. So follow me, stalk me.
There you go. Real quickly, before I let you go for the day, I did want to ask you, since you're an animator, since you said you love storyboards, what are your top 5 animated series of all time?
Oh my gosh. I knew this was coming, and I was going to prepare it, and I didn't. Okay. Gargoyles, hands down, was my favorite show ever. I even had the VHS with the game board. Xanatos would tell you where to go and all that. Like, I wore that thing out. Loved it. The Batman series, of course. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. 2 more. Let's see. Can I go really old school and do Tailspin and then the Rescue Rangers?
Yes,
I'm going old
Dale.
Yeah,
you're gonna have those theme songs in my head.
I myself am a big fan of Darkwing Duck. Everyone will know that.
Dang it.
When there's trouble, you call DW. So which one did you like more? Did you like Rescue Rangers or Tailspin more?
Oh, don't make me choose. I think I would go with Rescue Rangers. I think it'd be my favorite. Yeah.
That's
Chip and Dale.
That's
Gadget. I had a giant Gadget toy. It was like her head was all plastic and then her body was all cushiony. I loved her, and then my sister sent her down a river in a boat. Never saw her again.
Oh, kids can be so cruel.
I know. She was 21 at the time. No, I'm kidding.
I was always partial to Voltron, but the vehicle Voltron, not the lion Voltron.
I cannot remember the vehicle Voltron. I remember the toy, but not the cartoon.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought of another one. Avatar: Last Airbender. That's another great series, but that's newer. I'm thinking like when I grew up, but yeah.
That's cool.
I'm gonna keep thinking about all these animated series, but
all right. Well, one thing that's always animated is Last Comic Shop, and you can make sure that you check us out every single week by going out to www.lastcomicshoppodcast.com. It's our fantastic little website where you can rate, review, and subscribe to our fantastic, terrific, wonderful, marvelous podcast every single week on places like Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Stitcher, Spotify, iHeartRadio, TuneIn, YouTube, CastBox, Amazon Podcasts, and a variety of other podcasting platforms. You can also follow us on Instagram and Twitter, and we highly recommend that you do that because sometimes we post things that Kaylin Smith does, and she does some great artwork. Her and all these other folks, they do great artwork on Twitter, and we pre-post it. So make sure that you follow us on Twitter so that you can see some fantastic stuff from other comic book artists daily. As well as, J.A., what else can they find on our website every single day?
Merchandise. I was going to say they can find out all the spoilers for Lost, but no. Merchandise. T-shirts, hoodies, beer koozies. What you need, we've got it.
And while we may be the last Comic Shop podcast, we're probably not the last comic shop in your time. So make sure you head out to the Comic Shop Locator, www.comicshoplocator.com. Find a shop near you. Support those local comic shops. Support those local artists, folks like Kaylin Smith that are making great stuff, putting it out there in the world for our entertainment and edification, and throw some cash their way.
All right. And until next week, I was the host with the most, Andy Larson. I was joined by Chad Smith, J.A. Scott, and the wonderfully talented Kaylin Smith. And until next week, stay safe, stay sheltered, and make sure that you stay out of weird time machines. Because you never know what kind of weird bugs are in there. You gotta take a can of Raid next time. Sure, you got a bullet wound, but come on, they were still cockroaches.
They needed leeches back in the day. If they have Healy cockroaches, bring them
I am not George Washington, sir. I don't believe in your holistic medicine. I will not have bugs chewing on me.
The Last Comic Shop was a 2021 Black Angus production.